Testing done. All right. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being here. You could easily be at the beach, or I think everyone looked up about the Lost and Found announcement, so it seems like you could be there too. But yeah, we're really excited to have this chat today. And before we get into it, just kind of show of hands, how many people would kind of classify themselves as having, call it a moderate level of knowledge around electric vehicles, or just electric? All right, we're sitting at a nice 37%, let's call it. So we haven't reached half. So with that, before we get into, obviously share a little bit about EV Passport, but maybe we just kind of want to zoom out real quick and just kind of talk about the EV landscape or ecosystem more broadly, just to get everyone on the same playing field. And then we'll get into, you know, all the awesomeness that is EV Passport and kind of what's going to bring to humanity.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, everybody. And I know I'm in between lunch, but you know that's a good place to be. Your attention is captivated. So, first of all, thank you, Cordell, for your kind words, and thank you for having us. We're delighted to be here, and you know, it seems as we're hearing these conversations and a lot of this wonderful thought leadership throughout the conference, infrastructure is the nucleus of many of them, right? Whether it's bringing it to big cities, small cities, underprivileged communities, and everywhere else in between, the United States and around the world, and we're lucky to have that. So, you know, like you said, I do want to start the conversation with a little bit of kind of EV 101. I think that's a good place to start. And because I'm in between lunch, I want to make this a little bit interactive. Do y'all know how many EV models are out there? Does anybody have a guess at what that number is?
25.
100. 25. 100, that's pretty good.
5.
5, okay. All right, that's a little low. There's between, you know, EVs and plug-in hybrids is over 370 models around the world. It's kind of wild, and most people don't think about it, right? Because they look like normal cars. There are a lot of different car companies outside of Tesla that make electric vehicles. And, you know, throughout my conversations, you know, with lots of different mayors, but also an assemblywoman from New York, she challenged me and said, you know, how do we make it easier, more accessible for everybody to get electric vehicles? And I thought that was a very astute point. And, you know, some of what I want to have a conversation about today is how do we make it accessible? How do we make infrastructure easier? How do we help, you know, get the power of green to these communities and empower jobs and get infrastructure front and center. But it's important to note that, you know, when you're purchasing an electric vehicle, there's a lot that goes into it, right? Does anyone know what a J1772 connector is? Yeah, didn't think so. It's the plug. It's the type of plug that goes into your car, right? When you go to the gas station, you're like, the nozzle looks right, you know, I pump my car. Well, there are different plugs out there. Every electric vehicle that's coming out there, and or plug-in hybrid, uses a J1772 plug, right? So VW, Ford, Chevy, the new Hummer, Kia, Toyota, they all use that, except one car company, Tesla. Tesla's kind of like the Apple model, right? And you know, and that's part of, you know, the narrative that I want to mention here today is we want to, you know, create standards, right? So that we can get everybody to, you know, use the same plugs, create systems and processes in that regard. So that's sort of the first point that I want to highlight. Is that a good starting point, Ferris?
Yeah, and I actually just had a question on that, just in terms of like looking out into the future, because like, you know, whether it be electric or a regular vehicle, most of the people here probably own a car, and when they get in the car, they're not really probably concerned around, oh, how far do I have to drive, or, okay, where's the gas station going to be? Whether you plan it or don't plan it, you're probably going to find a gas station. So just like really high level, how long, are we talking like 5, 10, 15, like 20, where we get into electric vehicles and we don't think? Like, it's all just going to be there. Like how far or how close is that future, as you kind of like share more about what EV Passport's doing to kind of realize that future?
So unfortunately, range anxiety is a thing, and it's because we don't have enough infrastructure out there. And you know, the good work that we're all doing across multiple levels is hopefully going to change that strategy, but hope is not a strategy. We're going to take it day by day, charger by charger, job by job. But it's important, when people buy an electric vehicle, they don't realize you have to plan your trips now, right? Because range anxiety is a thing. You got to know where you're going. You're in Texas. You cannot go from East Texas to West Texas today without stopping to charge. And there's the middle of Texas is quite barren. There's no chargers. And that's something that we're trying to combat. And Texas is a big market for us. We're excited to be in Dallas, even Houston, right? The Houston Rockets is one of our customers, right? Imagine Oil Town is now committed to electric vehicle charging, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I can definitely confirm this. Like, I'm looking to get a electric pickup truck, and my wife literally doesn't want to do it because she doesn't trust me, because she thinks we'll just run out of electricity. So this is definitely, whether it be range anxiety or just like me as a human being, just like lack of Ferris trust, this is definitely something that is, if it is prohibitive for us, it must be prohibitive for a lot of others out there, which is probably essentially blocking progress.
Yeah, and I want to pivot towards the actual construction and infrastructure side of it, right? I know that people think that electric vehicle charging is just sort of a plug, right, and it sort of works. But when we're thinking about planning our communities, our cities, and things like that, we have to consider what it takes to do that. There's a certain amount of power that goes into it. There's load balancing. There are all these variables that go into it. And a lot of cities across the country are challenged with updating the infrastructure because buildings are older and we weren't prepared to charge electric vehicles. And that's something that we're helping combat also at the same time is, understanding what it takes to put in a plug, right? The standard, level 2 charger, which is sort of your destination charger, is the charger you might see at home or a workplace, right? It's, about 7 kilowatts. And I encourage everybody to think back your physics days, right? So what does that mean, 7 kilowatts? So for, when you have a 7 kilowatt charger, you're able to get 30 to 40 miles of range per hour, right? So think about that. If I'm going from, I live in Los Angeles. If I wanted to go to Orange County, I'd have to light a candle and say a prayer, if I only did 1 hour of charge. So I would need to adjust my plan and make sure that I have full charge or, at least 2-3 hours of charge, which is why it's important to realize that, we're looking at putting infrastructure in areas where we live, work, and play. You don't need to go to the gas station anymore. Why? Because it's off the beaten path, right? You charge at home, you charge at your office, you charge at the grocery store, you charge at the movies, you charge at the casino, you charge at the hotel, you charge at the hospital, you charge at school, right? And we want to be able to allow people to charge at their destination. So that being said, you go to work. Most people should work about 8 hours a day. Well, so they say, right? But if you're doing that, you're able to charge your vehicle and come back, right? So that's why it's important to know that the 7 kilowatt charger, that destination charger, is such an important element of the way we're going to plan for that infrastructure. Well, that charger needs about 40 amps. Does anyone know what that means? 40 amps? A little bit?
No, I was going to say, it sounds pretty cool though. I'm kind of interested.
So your washer dryer in the United States is 220 volts, which is about 40 amps, right? For perspective. So but now you have the added element of having that in your house, plus your washer dryer in your unit, things like that. So as we're looking at building infrastructure, we have to take into account for this. And then you have faster chargers, things like that. Now, I share all of this because, there's mayors and different, public service leaders. We need to think about how we can update infrastructure to also make sure that we don't have rolling blackouts and things like that. Well, we got to prepare for that. And one thing that I'm very proud of at EV Passport is, we're not a bunch of energy guys, right? We come from the software world. So we're looking at this very differently. One thing that we're really excited to have is dynamic load balancing. So we're cognizant of how much load is coming in so that we can manage so that, your cities and communities don't have rolling blackouts. And I think that's a great segue into who we are as a company, right? A lot of times people say, well, what is EV Passport? Who are we? And often, companies will describe themselves as, you're either a business-to-business company or a business-to-consumer company. Well, I'm proud to say that we're a business-to-society company. because the work we're doing is leveraging infrastructure and creating engagement in areas like we live, work, and play, right? And I'm proud to say that we have a lot of customers that reflect the diversity of those locations. You know, I mentioned the Houston Rockets, Marriott's a customer, Hilton's a customer, Verizon is a customer, Portland General Electric is a customer. So, and the reason for that is because infrastructure is a very necessary piece of the way we do things, and connecting it is so vital, not just in the way we go about our day-to-day lives, but trying to save the planet, right? So when you think about not just the economics of it, but also how much CO2 you save, that's one of the measures that we look at. And I think, you know, I challenge everybody to go back and see if you can calculate your carbon footprint. You know, I think that's something that we need to think about as we go about this endeavor.
Yeah, something you brought